right. Welcome everyone to another episode of Awakening Dragons. I'm Katara Sky, and today I have Galactic Ashley with me, who I'm delighted to see again. And I will just introduce Ashley. Galactic Ashley is here to help others build resilience so they can move through fear, embrace differences, create something paradigm shifting. She dedicates life to embodying radical personal accountability, relentlessly pursuing personal growth, and mastery of experience. From these experiences, she holds a clean, integral, and safe learning space where she teaches and channels, inviting all parts of everyone to be divinely held so they can explore their belief systems and feel witnessed and loved. So, hello, Ashley. Today, I think we're actually going to focus a bit more on channeling. I mean, I certainly have a lot of questions about that as well. And in particular, when I was reading your bio, actually, it's this phrase you said about helping others to create something paradigm shifting. So that also lights me up as well. What do I want to start with? Well, let's dive into channeling. I think channeling is, there's so much more information out there and it's become so much more accepted. I would like to know if that was always part of your practices, like as a practitioner and what you offer. Did it begin there or did it kind of evolve into really channeled work and activation?
Oh, that's a great question. There's construction going on across the street, so I hope that it's not really coming through in the audio. Okay, great. um, so, I guess it would depend slightly on how one maybe defines channeling, but what I would say is that one of the things that I always say is that the beings raised me. And so when I say the beings, for me, that is the dragon consciousness, that is, there was a wolf being, there was a Native American being. So when I say the beings, I'm just in general talking about what I loosely, like publicly call one's soul's guidance system. So that would be high vibrational beings, that might include ascended masters, angels, whomever it is that is in your matrix that you work with that is connected to your soul. So I always say that the beings raised me. And so because of that, I have always been sort of inquiring and then receiving responses, and it sort of felt like a normal thing, like to the point that I think I was in like fourth or fifth grade, and I went to a Catholic school, and we were learning about, I think like abortion or something like extreme. And it's like the beings would sort of use the teacher's voice somehow, and like kind of what the teacher was saying would not come through with the words that they were saying, and then I would be learning about reincarnation, which was not being taught at a Catholic school. But it's sort of like I would have my, not my head down, but I would have a piece of paper in front of me and sort of be writing, and then there would just be information that was coming in about reincarnation and sort of like past lives. And then I would feel very connected to my past lives so that I didn't feel alone. And right now, when I'm saying past lives, I don't really mean past lives. I mean other lifetimes and existences that I am currently having. And so I would see myself holding hands with these other basically versions of myself, knowing that if I couldn't make a decision for myself, I could make a decision. And what I mean by I can't make a decision for myself, I mean like my self-esteem is just in the dumps. I don't feel good about myself. Like I just not great. But I could make decisions and like good decisions, not for me, but for us. Because everything that I do here is going to affect them, because it's like we're all holding hands. Like we're very much connected in that way. So I was being taught a lot of things, but I didn't necessarily realize that I was being taught them. I was just kind of being in conversation. So whether you want to define that as channeling or not, I don't know. But But basically, what I realized and had to work with, and why I didn't get the keys to what I call the Ferrari right away when I wanted the keys to the Ferrari, is because I had to I remember being like 18 or 19 and being like, why can't I do this work like right now? I want to do this work. And they said something, and this isn't the same as spiritual bypassing, but what they said was they called it, you have a propensity for spiritual escapism. So what that would have looked like to me would be, I would be channeling so that I didn't have to be here. So it's almost like I had to prove myself to the beings, to the universe or whatever, to show them that no, I do want to be here. I am here. I promise I want to be here.
Being
Yeah,
human.
like yes, I promise that I want to be human. And of course there was so much subconscious stuff under that, that eventually they gave me the keys to the Ferrari, but it took a while, which doesn't mean that I wasn't learning or communicating or really giving people readings and sessions, but they just weren't very unofficial. People would come to me and
Yeah.
they would ask me questions and then I would respond. Or somebody would sit next to me on a bus and tell me their whole life story and I would respond. Um,
But did you think
because
that this was normal, like that other children, other kids were also receiving this kind of information? Did you ever question, I guess, what
I
they were
thought it was
happening?
I thought it was normal because I mean, so you can a person, not you, but a person could say a lot of things about Catholic schools, and that a lot of people I end up working with a lot of people that are trying to either reclaim religion or are quote unquote recovering Catholics or recovering whatever, insert
Mm,
dogma,
yeah.
religion, abuse here. um, but there was a lot of really good things that happened at that school, that really I was connecting to God or source. Um, and I think that even in all the disconnection and the really like not okay things that were like sort of happening and being taught, I thought that because there was there to me there was really big access to spirituality. So I really just thought that everybody was doing that. So in second grade I ended up recruiting my entire class to ask Jesus into, into their heart. Man, this was when I was at a Christian school, which totally different vibe. And so I learned really early on. I went to a Christian school, and then in grade I switched to a Catholic school. And then everybody told me I was going to hell. Like the Christians told me I was going to hell, the Catholics told me I was going to hell, and I had to like pick one and convert. And so I was like, this isn't right, and you shouldn't be telling a fourth grader that. Like I like intrinsically like knew that the
Yeah.
adults were very confused and that this isn't really how it was. So when I went and asked Yeshua into my heart, like the clouds opened, light came through, tons of beings came, and the person that I had invited to do it with me, his name was David. He also had that experience. He might not have, but he was sitting next to me and I was seeing it. So why would he be seeing it? And he was really happy after, and we were really happy after. So I recruited my entire second grade class, and then the next day they all did it and it was like a really big group thing. And I ran up to everybody after to like see, did the heavens part? Like, did you feel any? Nobody felt anything. So my days of a missionary lasted about 24 hours because it didn't like they didn't have it. So then I was wondering about things, but there happened to be like sort of enough like I'm going to say deeper thinkers around me that I just kind of assumed people were kind of having this thing. But then when I started talking about, a wolf and a Native American man that ran next to me whenever I ran cross country and stuff, and then people were like, just you're being a weirdo and that's okay. Then I sort of just stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I went to college
Your
and
first,
then,
you were running your first group sessions way back in grade two, weren't you?
yeah.
So you're very experienced. So
Yeah, it's
on that
fun.
note, I've also seen that, in classes as well, some of my training, some of my shamanic training, they didn't really teach us channeling per se. But obviously we're connected to our guides. So my first question is, do you consider, like, for example, like wolf, like in our
Mm.
shamanic practices, we wouldn't say that's a being. We would say a spirit ally, spirit guide. Now, would you say same, but different?
No, because this particular wolf is not actually an earth wolf. It's
Mhm.
like these shapeshifter beings that like have identified themselves as being like these interdimensional beings that aren't really galactic, but they're not from here.
Yeah.
So I would label them a little more dragon adjacenty, like they can be that way, but they come through the wolf to the point of where I have seen a wolf walking across like in front of me.
So do
So, and
you
I,
use the word spirit guides, for example? Like if we do have in our, guidance system, like I have lots of animals. Some are a lot more cosmic than others, which are very
yeah.
clear not from Earth, and some are very earthly. So would you use spirit guides? And I'm guessing the audience might ask this as well, because like beings or beings, that language only came to me like much later. So where do you
Hmm.
put spirit guide?
Sure. I think spirit guides totally works because they can, a spirit guide could be it could actually be a deceased loved one. I've seen a lot of people that go through phases where maybe they lost their mother when they were younger, and so they are kind of already in a lot of ways connected over, but their mother sort of acts as an intermediary until they can start bringing in I don't want to, I'm not saying the mother's not high vibrational, but a different frequency
Sure.
of energies. And so because there's trust with the mother, um then there's trust with, oh, that really is, XYZ ascended master or whomever, because you're already dialed in the frequency of your mom because it's your mom and you felt
Yeah.
close to them, and sort of the loss as when you're younger. So I've seen that a lot. I think one of the things that we actually will, I don't know why I say I think, because everything's always up depending on who's there. But one of the things that we do talk about is actually the difference between like an animal totem, an animal ally, like, and an animal guide, because I've been super connected to animals, and also how sometimes these animals are providing links to um, to a different dimensional being, because these other dimensional beings absolutely work through animals and through the animal consciousness that is here.
Perfect. Great way of explaining it. And I guess for channeling, it would be a side question and related to that as well. Like, why are some people, as they reincarnate, remember so easily? Like your gifts clearly, you didn't forget them, and even though you may not have started, may not have continued talking about them, they were always present. Why is it that some people, their gifts are so prominent, and others it really takes time to remember, relearn, whatever words you want to use? I mean, other
Well,
than the fact that of course we consciously choose this life and the lessons that we learn, but yeah, like just on that remembrance and ability to tap into that, because everyone has the ability to be intuitive and
oh yeah. That's a divine birthright. It's not, the beings like to say all are chosen, few choose, right? So it's like we're not more, you and I are not more special than anyone else, and somebody else who's maybe better at channeling than me isn't better than me. It's just, it's also like where you put your attention to.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, and I also talk about this in the channeling course, I think, like, sure, I woke up and I was, or just came into this planet and I was like, pretty connected. And I still dedicate massive amounts of my time to honing that. And when I did get the keys to the Ferrari, they were like, you need to sit every day and do this for like hours and like practice. But I loved it. So it's like, what else would I want to be doing? And but let's go back to the question. So, what I would say is, I think what people like to do, we all do this. I do this. I look at Instagram things sometimes and I'm just like, ugh, I'm so behind, like in my business or whatever, right? So,
Yeah.
we all compare ourselves. Um, the beings like to say that sometimes the most memorable flower, when in the fall, when the snow starts to fall, is actually the rose that bloomed last. And that's the one that's remembered. That's the one that you cherish as you go into winter. So for
Mm.
people that are quote unquote waking up later, that's like not a thing. Um, you also have a ton of life experience. So I think the waking up happens faster and the connections can happen sort of maybe more quickly. I believe that every experience that we are walking into, we have been training for and prepared for, whether we know it or not. And that there is a divine timing to everything. So for a lot of people, it's actually a little bit of a struggle to
Mm.
like remember things right off the bat and be like, what's going on? And like maybe have all these connections. So some things are easier, but some things like school are like really hard, or focusing or paying attention or fitting into like the normal structure of things. And then there are people that can fit into the normal structure of things and then they start waking up and then it becomes challenging. So either way, I don't think there's any way around any of this, and the order doesn't matter. I think in general, as humans, we still all have to hit like these kind of like main points on this
Yeah,
cycle or this circle. It doesn't
learning
matter the
whatever it is that
order
we're.
that it, yeah, it doesn't matter the order that it comes in. I still have to really be in my body and do all of the things to make sure that I'm like really in my body. And that has come later than before. So, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. It is the comparison thing. It is the why is it so easy or hard for them? And I guess I don't know if you're into human design, but I'm a 5-1. I think it's called like the heretic investigator. It's like I want to learn, I want to take it all in. And that's why
mm-hmm.
I love even the podcast, having amazing conversations because they're all learnings, not just for myself, but for whoever is listening, and really getting to understand. A lot of times, some of my teachers may have said, okay, but you don't need to know how it's working. Just trust, just trust. And whilst I think it's really important to trust, I think that there's still this big part of me that's like, yeah, but I want to know what is that energy actually doing? Where is it coming from? Like do you know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
thing trusting, but not like, oh yeah, it's cool. There's always levels deeper that we can go, okay, so how and where and what am I remembering? So I have found that difficult sometimes to just trust, because I think there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge that is available. I suppose when the student's ready, the teacher appears, hopefully. So here we are. We will teach you channeling if that's what you want to do. So now, because channeling is, can be so widely understood, like we could be channeling our guides or channeling the beings. Do you cover different kinds of channeling? Like how would you describe channeling to someone who's a novice, but very, very interested to learn? What can they get out of it? Why do people want to channel? Why would someone want to channel?
I feel like I think all of my courses kind of are focused in this sort of general area. But one, um, I believe, and the beings have, this is a we over here believe. I believe that channeling is one of the greatest acts of self love that you can give yourself. It doesn't matter about the information. I mean, the information is great, right? Um, and you don't need to be a channel that sits on stage and delivers a whole bunch of information to people and whatever. It really doesn't have anything to do with that. It can
Mm.
have everything to do with that. But ultimately it's about building relationship
Mm.
in a really safe place, in a safe container. And so for me, I learned about relationship and reciprocity and being in relationship with spiritual beings, and or spirit beings or the beings or guides, angels, whomever, Yeshua, Mary, like whomever. And the respect, and the plants too, and the respect that goes into nurturing those relationships, and then taking that as a template and applying it to human relationships, which then it gets a little more hairy because I find that the beings that I work with have very clear boundaries communicate very, very
Yeah,
clearly and
exactly.
know me really well. And then I also know myself, and my higher self is involved. So things are kind of like set up in a way that makes sense with really clear boundaries of, I don't want this, or I don't want that, or how are you? What are you up to today? Hey, I had this one experience when I was younger. I was eating like a mango or one of my like favorite fruits, and I was like, "Hey, you guys, I have a body. You don't. Let's taste this. Like, isn't it so good?" And maybe this is just like what happens when you're an only child and grow up in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's just you talk to things and interact with everything that has energy, but then having like this sort of healthy template to apply, because no humans in my life were showing me at all what good boundaries were.
Mm,
There were narcissists in my life, and when you say no to a narcissist, it's not heard. So boundaries get really messy and very confusing. And so I learned how to say no, like, because when you, like, the beings, especially lower vibrational ones, like, it makes working with lower vibrational energies or non-beneficial energies, or I don't know, pick a term, demon,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
entity, um, a lot easier, because in my mind, I would have said like a while ago, like, really the scary, like the most, one of the most intense people in my life was like my mom, and like my parents, and like literally the people around me. And it's like, if I can be with them or work with them, like anything else that's going to come at me, it's like not a big deal,
Yeah.
because you're like,
Yeah, they're not even in a body.
yeah.
But
I mean,
that's
there,
a
it's
tricky
like,
thing as
it's
well.
intense and it's scary, but it's just, it's never going to be as scary probably to like the little child mind of mine, right? Like, the scariest thing were these embodied beings that were around me. And
Yeah.
so anything else just isn't that. So I feel that you would, like, you want to channel because it's an act of self-love, because you're opening yourself to really like higher vibrational energies that come in. And this is my favorite way to do shadow work, is to invite in higher frequencies in, and then it starts shining flashlights everywhere and you feel really good. And then you start seeing things that maybe ought to be repatterned, or patterns that you've been doing that are no longer serving you. So then you get to work with that energy, and you get to be connected to your higher self, or a guide that you know and feel a real strong connection to compassionately kind of sit and examine things and look at them and then feel support. And
Yeah.
you're getting the information, and so you're reclaiming your sovereignty in the process, and you're not just handing it over. And then you get to practice asking for help and knowing what you need. And all of these are very human things that work great in relationships with other
Really big
humans.
ones, right? Like
Yeah.
asking for help. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still not great at it at times, especially if they're human helpers. I think asking spirit is a bit easier, but if they're
Yeah.
humans, having to speak up and say, like, I need help in this. So I totally hear you on
Well, I want to go back to something that you said a long time ago. We'll just go to there about how you want to know how things work.
that. Mm-hmm.
I feel that if you trust what's happening, and then after a whole bunch of sessions, or however your like experiences, you the patterns sort of start showing up, and then you can start kind of putting them in these
Mm,
categories to understand, like, and I would just call that more like fine tune and fine level discerning, which isn't required to necessarily do the work. But I am also like you, and I want to know who, what, why, how, and how is this
yes.
happening, or how am I even connected, why is this being here, how are we connected, because
Mm,
you're not just randomly showing up here. And so sometimes it's about asking the right questions, but also the frequency behind the questions. So if there's a little bit of distrust, like subconsciously going on, then maybe the response won't happen. But still, ultimately, I feel like the more experiences you have, the patterns just naturally sort of start surfacing, and then you can sort of step back and then look. And then the more experiences that you have, or sessions that you give, then at least this is how it works for me, then when the beings are kind of like shaking out or fine tuning like what this person is feeling or what's going on or who these beings are, it'll be a little bit like this but not like that, and then it's a little bit like this experience that you have, and sort of gets like shaken out so that you can really understand its own fingerprint. And I think every single thing has its own fingerprint, even if a whole bunch of those things can be like categorized and like put
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely. And of course, the part you said before already is like you have to devote the time to it as well. You have to do the work, you have to do the practice. What about all the preparation needed in order to be a vessel to channel? Now, I feel passionately about this topic as I teach and I practice qigong, but in general, what I mean by qigong, I mean it literally means energy cultivation.
mm-hmm.
One of the techniques that I learned is not movement and 3,000 kinds of qigong, but it's really more that clairsentience feeling, but also all the other clairs. But particularly, it's being able to hold the light or hold the frequencies, because I don't think that everyone's vessel is actually, I don't know if ready is the right word, capable, maybe, so like I'm talking about, let's just say, and no disrespect at all, but let's just say someone who's deep into crime and really not living in the brightest light, like I don't know, like can they easily tap into it? Like what's the vibrational preparation that the vessel, the person, the body needs to be in to be able to work with these kinds
Well, I am curious about your perspective on it from the body and the movement work. So, if you want to talk about that, you can.
of sure.
Okay.
Well, especially in qigong, I think again, I feel like qigong is coming more and more popular as well. I first started to study qigong more from a movement perspective, and it was very animistic. So embodying different animal forms like
Mm-hmm.
lion, like snake, and obviously because of my heritage being Chinese, there was also that linkage into a different, which was Chinese medicine,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the organs and how things are all linked on that physical, emotional, and spiritual level. But over time, and I guess as I practice other modalities as well, my current master who teaches Qigong, he's a medium. Like when we sit together, it's like we're just sitting with our eyes closed with all these beings, in the room. And the way that experience was very different than how I experience all other Qigong for sure. But even how I experienced bringing or connecting to spirit allies and guides in shamanic work, it was literally as if, like without touching or even with touching, it was more obvious. Like it was like literally feeling the imprint or the energy of the beings like move through us. And that, like really experiencing the master as a channel, being able to hold all of that. And all of the things that we were practicing, it was making the link between the physical. So my hand is going like this, I'm going to feel the energy here, perceiving a shift into the astral level, like really again in the body as well. What does physical feel like? What does the astral feel like? So chi, for example, is astral. And then as we work higher, mental, body, akashic, yeah, like it's just really different and a completely different way of preparing ourselves to be able to actually allow the light to stream through, allow source frequencies, like I think we use different languages, sure, um, different languages, but really it was like being able to hold it. And as you said, when you bring through some of these high frequency beings, it's like, oh, it shines a light on things. I remember that there was a practice I was sitting there. It was one of the first practices where we were just connecting to source light. Let's just call it that. And for like a good 20 minutes, where it might look like we're not doing much, but there was so much that was going on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I wanted to rely on my known methods of clearing, okay, like coughing, like burping, like moving, like I was
Mm-hmm.
used to working with the body. But he's like, let the stillness help you to watch how the energies are moving and clearing. And just really big experiences on literally perceiving how energy is moving, and that when this high frequency light was coming in, it was literally making all of my darkness and shadows, like we pretty much shake up and be felt. Does that make sense how I'm explaining it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what I noticed, and especially in training this way, because it was like 20 to 30 days consecutive, it was
Mm-hmm.
like a real buildup of our own of energy, of vibration. um, so it was really obvious in the beginning. I had no capacity to cope. I felt like I was in trance. Like as soon as we were in classes, like 15 minutes in, I was like, oh, I can't even handle the frequency. But over time, we could sit for 4 hours and just be like that. And not channeling, like not using words or anything, but just,
Yeah.
I'm going to use the word, just experiencing, just being in that frequency and letting it do its work, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
But
that's part of it. I think a lot of people put lots of pressure on. I mean, this is one of the things that we look at in the course, right? Is a lot of people put pressure on the words that they say.
mm,
But it's not really about, I mean, eventually, sure, depending on what you're like looking for, the words can matter later and the humans like the words, but it's really the energy that's behind the words.
mm.
And
But the
so,
ability to perceive the energy, right? Like I'm not
right.
super clairsentient, okay? Like I get some, little goosebumpies and feelings,
Mm.
but more, I'm more clear knowing stuff. So when teacher or others, like, oh, did you feel that? Did you feel that in your body? I'm like, no, I don't. And there
Huh.
was so much deeper in my learning that I needed to rely or really trust the other senses, because I wasn't experiencing it the way others were, the way that it could be more obvious for people when they, oh, I feel it, right here, or whatever. um so it was developing the sensitivity to perceiving the energy that is probably still the most challenging for me, especially in discernment, right? Because you can think or know, right? Because I do absolutely believe in clear knowing,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah, me too.
different. It's different than, I see the being, right? Which can still be deceiving, or I
No,
feel.
super deceiving, by the way.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I want to be
Yeah.
clairvoyant, like, hang on to that. Like, I absolutely know that knowing is so powerful. I'm so grateful for that. But not having fully developed, the clairsentience. And maybe that's, the thing of not rejecting to be in the body, but the process of like, this is the embodiment. This is getting comfortable to feel the feels and allowing the body and trusting the body to receive. Mm.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that though, because I this is why I was one of the things that I've learned through the embodiment stuff is I used to get really like kind of frustrated because other psychics might look in my field and they'll be like, "Oh my God, like you need to be more grounded," and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about, because every time I would do like an earth thing, I am a person, I just merge with things, I just channel things, I know things by like I merge with it, we give permission, I become it. And so what I realized is like being on the planet and of the planet is not the same as channeling the planet.
That's
Because
right.
what would happen would be is I would be doing these meditations, grounding meditations. I would literally melt into the earth and become the earth. And I'm like, I don't know I cannot get any more grounded than becoming the planet, right? Like, I do not know what you people are talking about. Like, I don't understand. And then the other thing is, and so I feel what you're saying because, and this took me like a while to figure out. So we all have some innate abilities. You have the knowing. I also have the knowing, but out of some gift of whatever, Even with all of the stuff in my history, I am a massive, massive feeler. Like
Mm.
I intensely feel like everything. So that's also confusing because my body is feeling all of the vibrations and I'm literally using my body as a tool. So how am I not in my body? Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's it was really confusing. And so later what I just realized that there were just massive parts in my, so I don't really like as hard of a time as I have with like huge chunks of basically my body being like atrophied and shut down. I have no idea how to tell you like how I can feel all of these things in my body, how I was even able to channel anything because things were still like running. And I think what happened really was that there's something in my system because I there's this phrase that's always been there. It's like I will die before I give up my connection. So
Mm.
like that was just like so intensely in my system. Like you cannot take God away from me, which is impossible, right? Um like you can't like it cannot be taken away from me. So that has always been there. So I really believe what I was doing was I'm just like, "Oh, this is all atrophied, like some part of my body. Well, I'm just going to create something and we're going to go around it." Like plumbing and piping and like making all of these things to like go around like the dead parts and the parts that were offline, and I'm just gonna like have some kind of something that is there because I know that I need to run the energy. And then when I got the keys to the Ferrari, then beings started coming in and like working on my body and making sure that the amperage and the voltage and things were connected. So there was like a ton of work that was getting worked on in my light body and in my spiritual body, and then the plants have come in to be like, now we're working on the physical,
Yeah.
like very intensely,
So I guess
massive.
this part, this is where it sounds like, you were able to perceive and know that the beings were actually helping you to work on the vessel, to work on the
Right, because they told me, right.
yeah. Yeah, but no, but this is what I'm saying, right? So
Yeah,
if the ability of the person, the human being cannot
yeah,
perceive it, I mean, they may be working on it, right? You could be in a room full of all the guides but not know it.
yeah,
And that's what I mean, like, whatever degree of perception, like sometimes I just wasn't experiencing it the way that the other students were. And it was also very interesting as we were I was in a very advanced, like the two, three other people, they were super advanced in this particular kind of qigong. They had been studying with the master for a while, and it was exactly that thing of we would do a meditation, what was your experience? And they would go off, about what beings came through and what was happening. And I'm just like, no.
yeah,
And
but that's okay. And I think
it's
that
okay.
that's the comparison thing. I mean, this happens in my classes all the time, and people later they're like, I don't know if I should be in here. I'm like, you should totally be in here. Don't listen to those people because the thing is that we are all so divinely attuned in the most unique way to perceive information that as soon as you start comparing yourself to someone else or the teacher, you're already like denying these parts of yourself that want to tell you how you perceive and receive information.
Yes.
And
And
I'm
I
also
think
a
that's a
big,
really great thing to say.
yeah. And because I'm not here, and I say this all the time, I'm not here to make people channel like how I channel. That's like not a thing because I can't channel how you channel. I
Mm.
can't, like, we all have these amazing soul experiences that are available to us that are natural and that our cellular structure like knows and remembers. And so that's what we're trying to remember so that we know how the spirit or the energy wants to move through us. And it can only come through us in a very particular way. And it's not going to come through anybody else. Sure, there can be overlapping things. I'm also a really big believer in working on some of the clairs like that maybe are weaker for you. And I think that sometimes our strongest clairs can be ones that sort of get removed because we can become codependent on like a certain, again, this like relationship stuff, right? Like how are we in relationship with the way that we perceive things? So sometimes things sort of like take a step back so that we are almost forced to kind of rely on
Yeah.
something else. And this is my favorite sort of metaphor for this. When I was growing up, I had a really good friend that was also played basketball, and they broke their right hand, and they were right-handed. So they were forced to use their left hand. But by the time their right hand healed, they were perfectly amazing at both hands. And that is the goal. Otherwise, you're always going to be handicapped.
Yeah.
So being
I
able,
100% agree. I feel
yeah,
I see the gift in, whichever of my pairs is lesser developed, because it allows me, it's really forced me to work on that game of trust, where I
yeah,
trust myself. And I think what you said earlier about there's no two people who are going to channel the same.
yeah,
Two people who are going to be the same with the same gifts in the world. And I think it's really important. And this is for everyone, all students, whatever it is in life, because we may guru rise. It's not a word. Our
it's a good
teachers,
word though.
and we put them on pedestals, or we think that it should look like that.
Mm-mm.
And in all of these experiences, I've taken really amazing things from each course and each lineage and thing, because I realized, that's what I needed to learn from here. That's what I needed to learn from here, and kind of putting it together. And I have to say I'm really proud of myself for being able to say, okay, the teacher has said that, but I hate dogma, and I really hate if things are very, it is like that. And I'm like, is it though?
Yes.
And coming to your own truths about exactly how it's done, especially when it is about channeling, especially when it is about expression, right? Like how we choose to use our gifts, how you have chosen now to be a light worker as a career, right? So these are
Yeah.
all ways that we express ourselves.
And I also want to say that, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, like, I just feel like anytime we know something, we can lean into it and also hold it loosely, because we're always going to grow and we're always going to change. So the way that we actually perceive and receive things will also grow and shift and change.
Mm.
And and so we're always expanding, and so our gifts are going to go, are going to kind of not ebb and flow, that's not the right term, but they're going to restructure themselves around that too. And the way that I channel has changed. I don't even know if I know how to even say that it has, but it has. Sometimes I say that it almost felt easier. Sometimes it felt easier before, but I know that that's not like a permanent thing. That's just like I'm in a really big flux phase right now.
What is permanent?
What?
I said, what is permanent, right?
Well, right.
Yeah.
There is also that.
So talk to me a little bit more about paradigm shifting. What do you mean by that? Because I feel like, especially in this time and age, this time in the world, and all that is, I love it. I love being a paradigm shifter and encouraging it. I think it's so important that people find again their expression, their authenticity, and their way
Oh,
of being, and often that is out of the box. I mean, all of us may be in our own little boxes because we're all unique, but what does it mean for you, and why is it important now to know that we are in paradigms and that we need to shift?
yeah. I mean, well, we're always working in paradigms. I think the paradigm word actually probably came out of grad school, right? Because everything is a paradigm and everything is a structure. And then how do we even like shift a small structure within the greater structure of like academia? And so I think and the reason, and I wanted to be like more specific about, people like, a lot of this came from like, why do I do what I do, and why paradigm shifting? So generally the people that come to me want to do something paradigm shifting, even if they're not conscious of it. Now, that looks like this big word that means that I have to go out into the world and like conquer something. But to me, one of the most paradigm shifting things that you can do in your life is raise a child and do
Mm.
it differently than how you were raised, and maybe take and consciously maybe take some of the things that actually really worked well for you and like apply them, but also know your child and be able to help them move through the world. that is something that is massively paradigm shifting, but it might not be what people think when they think of paradigm shifting. So there's that. And then there's, I don't even want to say bigger things. And then there's like other things that you might do in the world, like actually go out and create something new that becomes a product or is out there, right? And
Yes.
so a lot of this really just comes from holding heart coherency. When what I mean by that is being able to be in your body, in your heart, holding your field and living free from the influence of others. Now, we're constantly being influenced by others, but we want to choose who's influencing us. So, our master teachers, or a best friend, or somebody that we have a high level of respect for, or relationships that we're in. Of course, we're going to allow those people to influence us because they probably have something in their field that we would like that to influence us because we want to be better people. But we usually become influenced by, like, freedom from the influence of others is like freedom from the influence of others, that you don't want that person to be influencing what's going on with you. So it's just like being able to like be the master of your being, of your body, of your energy bodies, of all of the levels and layers of your body, and to have an awareness to be able to be so present with what is not in your feel, like who you are interacting with, and to be able to be really dialed into that conversation, and also really aware of what you're feeling and what's going on. So it's like this multi-awareness.
Yeah.
And so, and that really helps us be here and be human and be connected to everything, the trees and the plants and all these things that are going on. But you can't do that if you have a voice that's like telling you, that's like the itty bitty shitty committee that's like going on and like, oh, does your breath smell? What's going on? Did you get this thing done, while like somebody's trying to talk to you? Because then you're not really there. And when you can really be there, then that's when the time slows down, and then you have enough time for everything. And
Yes.
so I feel that we sort of go in and out of those spaces, but whenever you find yourself in one, like, pay attention, because that's really full total alignment. And that's really, to me, that's the point of being here.
Across,
Traveling.
I was traveling to visit home and some old friends, and what I was really witnessing is just people just caught in the rat race, like totally not present with what they're doing, why they're doing the job they're doing, why they are making the choices they're making in life. Like they're just on the conveyor belts, like just doing it, but with no awareness. And I really saw that. And of course, it was just such a stark contrast to, I suppose, how I've slowed down a lot in the last few years. I was on that little, hamster wheel and just going. And then I guess it stopped, and I wondered, why am I even doing this? So I think things like this devotional time that we might spend channeling, being with ourselves, connecting with the beings, that itself can be paradigm shifting, because it's like, well, how many people actually take that time out and just be with themselves to figure out, what's this moment all about? Be totally present. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And we talk a lot of, so I can hear people, because this is a common thing. Well, I don't think I have enough time for that. And you do. It just has to become a priority. And I'm not saying, so just hold on. This doesn't mean, like, I know that people have kids and lives and that every like moment is scheduled. But what I'm saying is prioritizing your relationship with channeling your higher self doesn't mean that you have to go sit in some kind of particular pose in total silence. It means that you invite that in to take up space
Mm.
in your life, so that way you can learn to channel and wash dishes. It means that when you're in the shower, you have 10 minutes, and maybe there's a lock on your door, and if you have toddlers that are screaming or running around, it's those 10 minutes where you're showering, where you're just inviting the divine in and feeling something, posing a question, And if anybody has a commute, that is the best time to connect, even if you're driving. And obviously you have to be a little self-aware to like figure out like how much. But
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in high school, there was one point I was in high school, I remember there was a message that was like, the beings were getting a little concerned because I would just like start driving because my school was 30 minutes away.
Mhm.
And then I would sort of just like come out of it and be like at school. So you have to like be kind of like careful because it's the same. It's like one of those monotonous, it's the same thing.
Yeah, well, your subconscious knows how to get you to the
Yeah,
school.
your subconscious knows how to get you to school. The same thing that you've been driving since you were in fourth grade, but now you're actually like driving. But the point is that there are micro pockets of time that you can breathe and consciously breathe. Even it doesn't have to be about connecting out, it can be about connecting in into the internal world. It can be about, we talk about channeling body parts, about channeling like a piece of your body that has wisdom that wants to come through and be given a voice. Like there's, you know, you can come into the course with your own channeling agenda. There will be people that are there to really like develop a particular relationship with a particular set of beings. There will be people that are there because they want to do the plant devotional and they want to connect deeper to plants. There will be people there that want to practice channeling because when they are in intense plant medicine experiences, it's super beneficial to like practice discernment before you're in the middle of a plant medicine experience. There will be people that are newer and there everybody will be kind of with their own intention, but we will all be together in a safe place. And that's really the difference, is like it's a safe place because fears come up, period. Like, who am I channeling? I don't know. This feels weird. My heart is beating really fast. Of course it is. Because the energy is coming in.
All good points to mention, and even those places. I absolutely think consider my shower my sacred space.
Ah, yeah.
I actually say it all the time. My shower is my sacred space. Like the water's here. It's the cleansing rituals, but it is absolutely a time where I do probably the most toning and light language.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, what do I need now? Medicine for myself. So the shower is the best. Even brushing, your teeth or any of the other mundane routines that you have. Like in the morning, as you get ready, as you make your coffee, as you make your breakfast. Like this is how we choose to live a sacred life and have it be merged with our mundane. Like it's not separate, right? We don't have, yes, we have sacred practices, but it's not like we're two different beings. That the more that I come into alignment, the more that I feel like it's about always being with spirit, always being in the sacred. And prioritizing it. Like you mentioned, we have to prioritize. What are the priorities? And I was doing this exercise with one of my clients the other day, and we were talking about values. We start with values because you might say that you value something, personal growth, right? But are you doing the actions that are actually getting you further or progressing, evolving, whatever, in your personal growth? Or actually, are your actions in a comfort zone? You're like, oh, I just like saying that I want to go for personal growth, but you don't take any actions. Because a lot of people have secondary gains. They want to feel like, oh, you're so busy, all right, you don't have any time, right?
Oh yeah,
All
I
the
had some
excuses that we give.
I had some friendships that were like that for a while, and then the universe just wiped them all off the table because they were
Yes.
like, this isn't gonna help. And this is like one of my best friends that like we went to undergrad together and everything. She just had a baby, and I got to be like a cool aunt and all these things, and it just like it wasn't happening. They were like, she was busy. Like, I get it, but then I remember driving by her house one day, like because I just had to turn. I wasn't stalking or anything, but like they were out on the front porch, like drinking a beer, and
Yeah.
I was like, so it's fine. Like
Is.
I'm no longer an important relationship in her life, and this isn't, and there's no judgment there. It just is what it is. But
Yes.
that's the thing. You can't say that you want something and then not nurture it or cultivate it. That's like
Exactly.
planting a plant and then never watering it or never taking care of it or something like that. I want to go back to the question that you said earlier about like all of the preparation that goes into it. And I don't necessarily talk a lot about that because and that's a me thing. Cause there's a lot of people that are out there that are like, oh my God, this is just my, my weird new age voice, but it's not making fun of anyone, but also everyone and sure myself too. But it's like, oh my God, I can only eat these certain things and I can only do this certain thing and it has to be this way and it has to be that way. And that's like, that can be true. That can really be, I go in and out of phases like that and it can be like really hard. But I think people come to me and they're like, what should I be eating? Like in general, like what is the magic food that you should
Yeah,
be
yeah.
eating? And when I was channeling the most and having the most work done on me, I was on this really intense paleo gaps, like weird diet that was so meat based. And my body needed that protein so badly, right? And then many years later, like 2 years ago, it was like you can't eat meat anymore. Like the meat started like making me sick. So and then I go through these phases of like really hypersensitivity where if somebody's making my food and they're like upset, it like my body like inflammation starts happening. So then I have to like kind of
Chi
go in
is
and
in
like
the food, right? The chi is in the
yeah,
food.
right. So and then then I gotta like tune in and be like, what's going on? And they're like, this is only going to be like for the next like 60 to 90 days because you're just in a hypersensitive space right now. And I'm just like, okay. So then I have to remember to like, I should be doing that all the time, but I don't always go heal the food before. I mean, I do. There's like a kind of a mantra thing that goes on in my head, but all of this is to say that there isn't anything that's magic that you follow. It's you listening. This ultimately comes into you listening to your body. If I'm going to eat chicken soup that I made and within 20 minutes I can feel it going up and like slamming into my brain, and then I have a migraine and I feel sick for 3 days. It's very clear what happened. So I might try it again and then be double extra
Yes.
clear. I can't eat chicken, and then maybe try a couple of meats and then realize it's not going on, like it's not working. But I remember when my mom was sick and I was in the hospital with her last fall and it was like 40 days, it was super intense. I was like, I cannot get sick, like I can't get taken offline. And I went into the store and had to like tune in to see
Every
what I could have because I needed not just vegetables. And the beings were like, you can have this brand, this kind of beef broth, but not chicken broth, and you can do that. And then there was this bee like propolis like in like almost a gel packet, and they were like, get a bunch of those. And then there was some like spirulina and something else. And I remember when I had the bee thing, like this gel packet, I was like in the parking lot. I just felt all the bees coming in and I just started like sobbing because when we take in these vibrations and we're eating food, we're connecting to the beings that are coming and they can help us. And so the more tuned in that we are to our body, like the more that we can receive. And so when we're learning how to channel, it's not just I'm channeling this so that I can have information, so that I could be cool, so that I could like deliver it. It's like we develop these relationships and sometimes we like really need them and they can like really show up. And so to me, that's like life changing because when I was going through this, there wasn't anybody like there. It was just like me and this disastrous thing that was happening. I mean, I had some support from my aunts and stuff, but like it was a lot. And my body like really needed help. And I just was just like pushing, pushing, pushing. And so when we develop these relationships and we nurture them, they come in and they're constantly being these resources. Like we're resourcing ourselves, we're resourcing these energies, we're offering those energies. So how I'm not a bee. I mean, I did beekeeping before, but I'm not a beekeeper. I don't dedicate my life to bees, but I intentionally get hummingbird and bee pollinating flowers in my yard and tons of it. So it's like, how can I serve you in this really small way? And I'm so grateful for you, like helping me, you know? So, and that's like, and there's these bee beings, which, you know, can be also galactic, that are super amazing, that come in. So, yeah. So,
Isn't all of that just amazing? But absolutely.
yeah,
And I think, we've gone, well, we haven't touched on the galactic stuff, but we're being pragmatic about
yeah,
why we want to channel. And I think that as if you're considering this course or any other course, or just maybe this is planting seeds for your curiosity for what is
yeah,
channeling, like it can be so resourceful, as you say, and so comforting, just humbling. Like a lot of the energies I've brought through have led me to be a lot more sensitive and a lot more compassionate, and it really cultivates me to be a better human. So I'm very
right.
grateful for this, and I do prioritize it as a way to know more, sure, but just to feel connection with all that is. So I do wanna ask you if you want to share about your course before we close off. Just highlights where I'll share all the links and things as well on where we can find Galactic Ashley's course, which is starting in October. Is that correct?
Yes, October 9th. So
Great.
soon.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
like 1 month, basically,
I'm not.
1 month from this.
Yes.
Um, yep, the course is going to be awesome. It mostly, if you are feeling resistance to joining, that is normal. And to me, the resistance is showing up because it means that there's something for you to work through. And I'm talking like, there's the full body no, and then there's like the yes, but, like that yes and kind of thing going on. But that resistance is there because your body, or your body and your being, know that you're going to be asked to make some changes, right?
Yeah.
Because everything about belief systems, like I love looking at belief systems and things that come up, and there's always repatterning. And to me, there's no way that you could channel or do light language or do anything without having to like examine these things. So to me, that's where the resistance comes from. And also like reclaiming yourself. How do you be sensitive in a world that doesn't honor sensitivities? Pretty much
Mhm.
that's kind of my perception of the world. Doesn't really honor sensitive
Say we do.
people.
We say we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Um, so the logistics of it are we meet Wednesdays. It's all live. Everything is recorded. There's a lot of practice sessions so that you can actually practice these things. We go into it, like we sort of start with plants and crystals because those are pretty much not scary things. And automatic writing. So if you are a writer, this can be really good for somebody that's a writer. We talk about book ending the experiences, so setting up containers for yourself and safety. We talk a lot about what does even safety mean to you. So there's so many things that if you never channel after this, everything that we go over, I find very, very applicable to living in the human realm and really deepening your relationship with the divine. I mean, I'm all about divine union, just like divine union. And so this is really about deepening your relationship with the divine and then finding all of those parts in yourself that you might not think are so divine and allowing them to be that. I have never had anyone, the same with the light language course, that wasn't able to, speak light language after, write it, draw it, do all of the things. And I think this is my 5th year of doing the channeling course, and or 6th year. Everybody's been able to channel on the last day, and it's been amazing. And there's a lot of tears and crying because again, things come up and it's heart opening. And I think it's that heart opening that really creates resistance in a lot of people.
Yes.
It's
It can be
scary. It's
very.
scary to be loved.
Yes, and to be seen
Yes.
sometimes and then to be accepted as well. So absolutely. Well, I've been in one of Ashley's courses, light language. But yes, I will share all of the links and things I think that it's a beautiful opportunity for any of us to connect with the divine and to get to know ourselves in this way, and it's like, as you said, it's a gift to ourselves to be able to check. So I think it's something that everyone should prioritize, but that's just my opinion.
Hmm.
All right, lovely. That was a very inspiring, enlightening, and uplifting conversation. And I look forward to the course and all the things. And I'm sure that we might have another conversation because we didn't even touch upon light language and the dragons, right?
Oh,
There's
that's
too much.
right.
There's
I mean, was
too
this
much.
like awakening dragons?
I know, but that's okay. That's totally
Yeah,
okay. This is a podcast of expression and talking about the things that are interesting,
yeah.
that are eye
Well,
opening, that are heart
you
opening.
can come into the course, and I will definitely, we can all awaken all of the dragons. That is not the problem.
All right, lovely. I will see you very soon. And thank you so much for being here today. And thank
Yeah,
you
thank
for you,
you.
all the work that you do and all that you do.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.